The fight between Khamzat Chimaev and Kamaru Usman is getting closer and closer to being officially announced. According to Boers, this fight could take place in October at a numbered tournament in Abu Dhabi. Both fighters have expressed interest, which means we should expect statements from Dana White soon. The former dominant champion and the promotion's main hype machine could have one of the highest profile fights of this year. Hello fighters. This is the world of MMA. In this video I will give a prediction on a potential fight between Khamzat Chimaev and Kamaru Usman. But before we start the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like it, so you won't miss the next videos. Here we go. Kamaru Usman at the age of 36 can already be considered a true veteran of the sport. He has been in the UFC for 8 years, and during that time he has won the TUF season to win the welterweight belt and make 5 successful defenses. He has one of the longest winning streaks in the history of the promotion, and second only to Georges St-Pierre in title fights in this division. Until recently, Kamaru was one of the top 3 fighters regardless of weight classes. Until Leon Edwards brought down that legacy with one accurate high kick. The Nigerian tried to regain the belt in an immediate rematch, but was defeated again. Now, for the first time since December 2018, he will take part in a non-title fight. Kamaru's logic is very simple. Khamzat ranks the highest of all the welterweights currently available. Usman wants to stop this hype train and through it prove to the public that it's too early to write him off. Khamzat Chimaev appeared on the UFC radar in 2020. He broke into the league with a perfect 6-0 record and several notable wins in the Brave FC promotion. Since then, with each new fight, the hype around Boers has grown exponentially. He became the first to have 2 fights in the UFC in 2 different weight divisions 9 days apart. He was able to knock out Gerald Meerschaert with 1 punch in just 17 seconds and smash Li Jingliang on the canvas without a chance. In his first 4 fights in the world's strongest league, Khamzat missed only 1 meaningful punch. No other UFC fighter has ever had such a statistic before. In April 2022, Chimaev took the fight against Burns. The fight was a spectacular and bloody head-on collision, later considered by many to be the fight of the year. The winner of that fight was Khamzat. This earned him a place in the top 5 welterweight division and a chance to be considered for a title fight with one of the elite star fighters. The problem was that none of them were in a hurry to accept a fight with such a dangerous prospect. The only one who was able to force the challenge was the unranked Nate Diaz. But as a result of changes made to the tournament card, he was replaced by Kevin Holland, whom Chimaev also won without much trouble. Boers began to plan his move up to middleweight, hoping that it would be easier for him to get a title shot there. There was talk about their fight with Paulo Costa, because there is a real conflict between them. But when your name is called by the former dominant champion, and he himself shows his interest in fighting in the octagon, plans to switch divisions can be put on hold. A win over Usman would certainly make Khamzat the main contender for the welterweight title. After that, the champion's fight will be 100% guaranteed for him. So Chimaev is going towards Usman and has already announced that their fight is in the pipeline. According to Khamzat, now matchmakers are busy coordinating the financial side of the issue with Kamaru Usman, and after that the contracts can be officially signed. It's a good time to compare the skills of the fighters and see who has the better chance to win. Kamaru Usman's pluses in this fight will be his experience, elite-level wrestling and stand-up skills, heavy knockout punching and limitless cardio. In experience, the Nigerian Nightmare outclasses Chimaev many times over. For the past 5 years, he has fought only top 3 representatives. He has been a consistent 5-round title fighter and has topped the number tournaments. Khamzat has only Gilbert Burns in elite opposition so far. So it's safe to say that Boers has yet to face a fighter of Usman's level. Kamaru is a basic wrestler who made a name for himself in the UFC through wrestling. In his time, he won only by means of takedowns. He became the champion by means of them, defeating Tyron Woodley in wrestling. And even in his recent fight with Edwards, he showed that he still remembered his basic skills. Khamzat is also a very powerful and technical wrestler. Takedowns have been his main weapon in most fights, but we could see from the bout with Burns that when his takedowns don't work out, Khamzat can have problems. Usman will definitely be able to stand up to Chimaev in a wrestling, which means Boers will be deprived of one of his biggest advantages. Most likely the two basic wrestlers will, as it often happens, give up wrestling completely and will fight exclusively in the stand-up. We've already seen a similar story in Usman's fight against Covington. On the hands, Kamaru has progressed tremendously over the last few years under Trevor Whitman. He works technically, feels confident in a stand-up position with elite punchers, like Masvidal or Edwards, and does real damage with his punches. The Nigerian broke Covington's jaw, finished Burns and knocked out Masvidal in their rematch. Usman fought Edwards absolutely on equal footing in their second fight and outworked him in the stand-up until he got caught in the same high kick. We've already seen that Chimaev in the stand-up looks much more vulnerable than in wrestling. He made a lot of mistakes in his fight with Burns, got knocked out and was seriously shaken up. Usman is likely to be better and more technical on the hands, and he's certainly not inferior to Burns in knockout power. It looks like Khamzat will face the toughest test of his career. Another big plus for the Nigerian is his cardio. He is used to working at a high tempo for the whole 25 minutes and never got tired in any of his fights. He was not inferior in the stamina aspect to another cardio machine, Colby Covington, spending a total of 10 rounds with him in the octagon. He breathed much better than Edwards in their second fight. If the fight goes 5 rounds, Chimaev is going to have a hard time competing with Kamaru on this one. Especially since Boers has never even made it to the 3rd round in his career except for the Gilbert fight. With Burns, Chimaev's stamina began to slump toward the end of the fight. So it would be in his best interest to insist on a 3-round format to fight Usman. The pluses of Khamzat Chimaev in this fight will be his motivation, his youth, the current form, speed and grappling. There is a 7-year difference between the fighters. Usman is 36 years old and is coming off 2 straight losses that caused him to lose his championship belt. Kamaru is obviously at the end of his career. 36 years old for a welterweight is almost critical. A few more years he can fight at the top 15 level. But to compete with the best young fighters of the division will become more and more difficult. Chimaev, on the other hand, is only 29 years old. He's not a beaten fighter with a record of 12-0, who seriously believes no one can stop him. Mentally, Khamzat is one of the most feared monsters in the UFC. Approaching his peak and realizing he is one step away from the long-awaited championship. A win over Usman is the crucial step that could make him a top contender. So Boers' motivation must be overwhelming. Unlike Kamaru, he hasn't lost by knockout in his last few fights. He doesn't have that many old and permanent injuries and accumulated fatigue. His speed and reflexes don't drop because of age like the Nigerian does. So physically and mentally Khamzat should be much better prepared for this fight. As for his skills, it will be really hard for Chimaev to compete with Usman in wrestling and striking. He will probably be faster than the former champion, and just like the Nigerian, will be able to threaten with heavy punches. But his main advantage will be grappling. Usman has never been known for his jiu-jitsu skills. When he was in a parterre, he preferred to work in the ground and pound and score points at the expense of control. But even his game had some weaknesses, as Leon Edwards clearly showed. If Chimaev manages to get the fight to the ground, which will be a very difficult task considering that Usman in 8 years of the UFC has only passed a couple of takedowns, Khamzat will have an opportunity to engage his grappling and try to succeed by using it. Boers has finished half of his fights in his career with submissions. He always works very hard on the canvas and is always looking for a finish. If Usman makes any mistakes, he could very well get caught by some sort of technique. I think it will be Khamzat Chimaev who wins this fight. He'll be able to put Usman on the canvas and make some kind of submission. What do you think, friends? Write your opinions in the comments. Bye all.